listening to the Business Lunch Podcast with Roland Frasier. Brought to you by digitalmarketer.com. This week, Roland is sitting down with JJ Virgin. You've probably seen JJ. She's been on TV a lot, including being the nutrition expert on the Dr. Phil show. And she's worked with celebrities from Ben Stiller to the rock band Kiss. But what you might not know about JJ is she is one of the architects of our 21st century understanding of health and nutrition.
JJ, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I think this is now business happy hour.
Business happy
Official.
hour. I like that. Since we have wine, that's
yes, I'm very happy.
That is a good thing. What I like to do is just kind of find out about maybe some things that people don't know and you haven't shared before. I'd like to start with just how did the JJ that's here today get here from where you started long, long ago?
Oh my gosh. How far back shall we go, Roland?
Well, I actually really like to go back reasonably far because I like to kind of find out what got people into the things that they're in now.
Well, I can start with how I even became JJ because that's one of those questions that are like, what's your real name?
Okay.
And you know what's so crazy is here I am. My maiden name was Johnson. My second married name was Virgin.
Okay.
My third married name is Organ. There's a weird theme there that I'm not quite sure I can grasp or explain. And I'm done, by the way. I do things in threes.
All right, fair enough.
When I was in my fourth year at UCLA, I got invited to go to Japan to teach aerobics.
Okay.
I was an aerobics instructor, as you know.
Okay.
And I got invited to go to Japan, which was super cool. So I get there and I get off the plane and there's a man holding a sign. And it says, "Welcome, Juri." And I was Juri-san. And I thought, I don't really want to be Juri-san for the next 6 months. And so I became JJ.
Okay.
Because I can't say those
Easy
J's.
to say that way, yes.
I was Jumbo JJ, as you can imagine, being 6 feet tall in Japan, right? So that's where that name came, and that name stuck.
Nice.
Which was kind of fun in business because people would call up and I'd answer the phone as JJ and they'd ask to speak to, I didn't say my name and they wanted to speak to JJ, the man who must own the business. It couldn't be me.
That is so funny.
So it was a good little check.
Right? So
right?
people actually just assumed that right off the bat?
They would assume that if you owned, especially when I owned a gym, that it must be a man owning the gym.
Interesting.
Right? Couldn't be a woman. And so where was he? Right? Because they didn't know what JJ was.
Really?
Man or woman. Now I guess it would be an other, right?
So were you an aerobics instructor before you bought the gym?
I was a tap dance teacher in high school.
Tap dance? That's
yes,
awesome.
I was. Yes, and I actually taught tap dance in Japan.
I used to love tap dance. I watched it all the time when I was a kid and wanted desperately to do it. And then I finally cajoled my parents into buying a pair of taps for me. And I had no idea how to work it.
Yes, they don't just tap by themselves.
They don't. I was like, you just shuffle your feet and stuff. And
I don't look like Gregory Hines. What's going on? I tapped from the age of 5 until I went off to college. I was a Broadway level tap dancer.
Really?
Not much you can do with it, but
did you think you were? Like, was that
I went
off
to UCLA on a theater scholarship, and all they talked about for those of us in the theater department, they kept talking about how we were all going to be waiters and waitresses of Ships, which was this restaurant, this like terrible restaurant that had toasters on the tables, and I'm like, I'm not going to be a waitress. Like, I'm not going to UCLA to become a waitress.
Okay.
I better do something else.
So like they were planned dues paying time at
I'm like,
at Ships.
that is so not happening here. And what was so funny is I'm a natural born mathematician. That is actually what I love to do most.
Really?
When I was at UCLA, I took math and engineering. I got everything perfect. I had perfect scores.
Wow.
And then I was in an English class and I got insulted by my English professor. So I decided that's what I should do. I went to UCLA on a theater scholarship. Then I became an English major. And it's funny how when you go back and you think, well, what the heck was that path? But then everything comes together.
It really does.
So it really does.
So your favorite writer? Yeah, obviously, Tucker Max is sitting in the background, so you have to say Tucker Max. But
I actually don't like writing.
You don't like
writing? I
writing?
can't stand it.
Okay.
I don't even like.
You don't like to actually write, or you
I
don't
don't
like reading writing?
I love reading.
Okay.
Love reading.
Okay.
I can't stand writing. I don't write my books. I speak them.
Okay.
I hardly even write texts. I speak them.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, but I'm a voracious reader. I've always loved reading over watching a movie.
Do you have a particular author you like the best?
So here's now I'm admitting it. Now you saw me kind of like go over
I
there.
did
All right.
actually see that.
Gosh.
Yeah, I caught
okay,
that.
so here it is. There are 2 things I read. I read business marketing books.
Okay.
But I don't read those at night.
Okay.
Because if I read those at night, then I will be up all night long.
Your brain keeps going.
So what I have to read at night, Here it is.
All right.
I admit it. Okay, you got the thing on the podcast. You got me here already. I read really stupid chick lit types of things.
Okay. Like what? Give me an example.
I don't even know the names of these things. It's like Devil Wears Prada types of stuff.
Okay.
I read those because they're so inane. And what I always tell my clients when they need to go to sleep, I said, read a good but not great book. One that you can read a little bit, it kind of takes your brain off of business and other things. You're like, ooh. And then you just shut it because it doesn't matter.
Now, do you enjoy them?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm not obsessed with them, so I won't
Right.
stay up all night. Like I was reading, I love, science thrillers and legal thrills. I will read that all night long. So I can't do those. You
can't do that, right.
You know the one where they go to Rome and they're searching all over the
The
place?
Da Vinci Code?
Yes, like that.
Right.
I will stay up all night.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
can't read those.
I'll listen to those things in my car, and then I'll sit there for an hour in front of wherever I am with the motor running because I don't want to leave it, and that just doesn't work. Now, at the time when you switched to English, did you know that you didn't like writing? That was just a revenge?
I never liked
switch for
writing. It was a revenge. It was a
okay.
total like, I'll show you, dude.
Interesting.
You just
like I'm going to come over here because they insulted you and said you'll never be a writer. Or
they
something
threw
like.
down the challenge, and I'm like, I'll
like,
show
the
you.
hell?
Yeah. And what was so funny is here I was at UCLA. I'd still be there if they didn't have the credit allotment, and you were like, you have to leave now.
Right.
And then I took a kinesiology class, and then I took a nutrition class, and I was like, this is it. But I had too many credits.
Okay.
And literally the day after I graduated from UCLA, I went to grad school in biomechanics, which is physics and calculus applied to movement. And I was like, I found my
You found
thing.
your thing. Okay. How did you escape being an engineer?
That never was exciting to me at all. I wanted to go be a NASA astronaut.
Okay.
Because a lot of people in exercise science, that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was teaching aerobics, and someone came into our little aerobics studio and wanted someone to come to their house. And so I went to their house, and I became a personal trainer.
Okay.
It was me, Body by Jake, and Mark Sisson of Primal Kitchen.
Really?
The 3 first personal trainers.
Oh, that's so
And
funny.
what was crazy was I had all this education. I was deep in graduate school at the time, learning all these things. Jake had nothing. And Jake was charging twice what I was charging, had his brother working for him, and they were working out where I'd spend an hour with a client. They were doing 30 minutes, double charge, so now they were making 4 times what, and they had a waiting list.
Really?
And I'm like, what the heck is going on there? And that was when I had this whole epiphany of it's not, because in the health field, people go and get more and more and more degrees and certifications, thinking that's somehow going to get them more successful. And that's when I realized I needed to learn marketing because that guy was a master marketer.
Interesting. So you were watching their success and saying, I can do better than that even because I know more, right?
I was like, how can they be doing that when I'm in graduate school? And then I was in doctoral school. And I had a client at the time. She goes, okay, so you're in grad school. What are you going to do when you graduate? And first she said, why are you there? And I said, I want to reach more people. She goes, all right, well, so when you graduate that, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to go get my PhD. She goes, why? And I go, because I want to help more people. And she goes, those don't correlate.
Right.
And I'm like, they don't? Right? Because when you get into academics, everything is getting more.
Yeah.
Right? Getting more
academics.
degrees and more certifications. They try to keep you in this little thing.
They do.
So when she told me that, it was like, what? Light bulb goes off. I actually sold my personal training business and moved into this woman's house.
Really? Interesting.
Oh, yeah, I'm a quick start. So when she said that and I had that epiphany, I sold my personal training company. I dropped out of my PhD program. I moved into her house because she was going to teach me how to be successful in business.
Interesting.
Yep.
And so was she like your first mentor?
So this was my Mr. Miyagi. I spent 6 months with her before she ever taught me anything in business.
So she truly was. She was a wax on, wax off kind of.
I was like, all right, I'm ready. Okay, now I've just sold my business and I'm here.
Right.
And what are we going to do? And she put rubber bands on my wrist.
You're kidding me.
Nope, I am not. I am like,
that is amazing.
It is crazy. So she puts rubber bands on my wrist. And now I am there. Like I have literally, I had been living in LA. She was in Fort Lauderdale. I'd moved out. I'd sold my company there. I dropped out. I drove to Florida. I mean, I am there with her in her house,
Wow,
right? I'm
right.
fully committed.
You're all in, yeah.
And she puts rubber bands on my wrist and says, whenever you have a limiting belief or a negative thought, snap your wrist. And I thought, I have really screwed this one. Like, oh my God. And I'm like, all right, but when are you going to teach me business? You're not ready.
Truly.
You're not ready.
That
Yeah,
is amazing.
it was all of this stuff about managing your environment. It was way back during Nightingale Conant times and Walkmans. And I literally all day I would go out jogging and listen to these Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar.
Now, are
and
those
Og
things she
Mandino.
assigned you, or were you doing that kind of on the side?
She had all of those, and I was supposed to create this amazing environment of all only positive things. I wasn't supposed to ever read the newspaper.
Okay.
And I was just supposed to surround myself with positive people and do that. And so I did.
Do you to this day? Do you read the news or?
I don't read the news.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
My mother's freaked out by that. I'm like, if something really bad is going on, someone's going to tell me, I'm sure.
My wife lets me know all of the things that happen. She doesn't watch the news, but she has it flip up on her Apple devices. And so it's interesting because you will always hear it. You will always hear it.
Yeah,
right?
you will.
I landed in Austin. I had no idea that you couldn't drink the water the last time I came here. But I knew it within a few minutes because somebody was like, oh,
Right.
did you hear you can't drink the water? So you'll always hear what you need
You'll
to
know.
hear.
I know. And the rest of it's so negative and depressing and horrible. And then you're in that, you just go in that downward spiral, and I don't need to be there. So I don't do it.
So you're in Miss Miyagi's house and snapping your rubber bands and listening to this positive stuff. What happens next?
Well, because she was a Hawaiian Blue Diamond in new skin. So her whole thing was, now I'm going to turn you into a network marketer.
mini me or
mini
something like that, right?
So honestly, I think that everyone should have to take a year of their life, do network marketing, and be able to feed themselves doing it. It's the best business school you could ever go to. And because I'd come in as a nutrition and fitness expert, and she had me speaking all over the place.
Really? So she's the one that kind of first got you
Yeah, she was like,
exposed to that.
go over there, do that. And she taught me how to sell. I remember she said to me, she's like, just throw it out there and then shut up. And we were sitting at some meeting in Mexico City, and she goes, they were ready to buy 30 minutes ago, and you just bought it back. You just kept yapping. She goes, just throw it out there, shut up. I'm like, okay.
That's so cool. How long did you do that?
I was with her 6 months. I actually became a diamond in new skin.
Okay.
And then one day I woke up and I thought, I just don't want to do this one more day.
Okay.
And, once you really understand what she helped me realize, because I was so stuck as a personal trainer, I couldn't get past $25,000 a month. To me, that was like, at the time it was $10,000. And then I learned how to hire people, and then I learned how to go speaking because you could get paid more. But I was like, still stuck trading time for money.
Right.
And so when that whole concept of leverage and scale and duplication, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. And you get to a point, you go, oh, I could actually do this for myself, and then
Right.
I'd have something saleable, and
Right.
right. And when that light bulb goes on, and I just started really looking at the whole network marketing experience, where they say, an average person can make an above average income, and it's not true.
Yeah.
And it's not true in life.
Yes.
In life, there is no average person making an above average income. I believe that people, when they really hit their stride, make exactly what they're really worth and
Right.
the value they bring into the world. So if you're an average person, you're going to make an average income.
Right.
If you're willing to think bigger and do above average things, you'll make an above average income.
Right.
Right?
It
And have
seems
an
to be
above
that-
average impact. Yeah. And it's probably not a popular thing to say.
But unfortunately, I think above average people in network marketing still have a hard time making that average.
That's what I started to see, because you're recruiting. You have to go
you
through
know the
tons
math. Like, you're looking at the math. And
Yeah, so I'm like a math person. I'm going, wow, look at this funnel.
Right.
And what I like to do is the exact opposite of that. I like to find those leaders was so much work. It
Was
was
it?
such a needle in the haystack.
Okay, so you did that for 6 months.
No, I did. I was in New Skin for 3-4 years.
3 or 4 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And it was fantastic.
Yeah?
I actually got to go to the gym with FloJo.
Oh, nice.
Right? I mean, it was the greatest thing ever. So, there was some amazing things that I learned there, but I really felt like the whole thing was kind of set on a house of cards. It could go anytime.
Okay. So do you remember when you made that decision?
Yes, because I had a baby. And so here I was, and I'd always been in weight loss. Here I was with a baby, getting through all of that. And I kind of went, this is just not working anymore. I need to do something else. And my then husband had been a medical malpractice trial attorney.
Okay.
He joined the business with me, and I discovered he was one of those people who really needed to have a job and be at an office and people tell him what to do.
Didn't do well without that structure.
No, not at all. All of
Right.
a sudden he was like, I go, what did you do today? Well, I went down to breakfast at the Floridian. I was like, oh no, this is not going to work.
Right.
He needs structure.
Right.
And so all of a sudden I have an out of work trial attorney who doesn't want to do that anymore, but doesn't have any money.
Right.
And I now have a baby.
And you have a baby, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm a weight loss, fitness and nutrition person. What am I going to do? So I decided, and this was in 96, I'll start an e-coaching business.
Okay.
It was back when you had to plug in your computer.
Right.
There were no laptops.
Right.
And do the dial-up with AOL.
Yeah.
And I sent an email out to my old clients in LA, and I said, I was in North Carolina because we'd been living in Fort Lauderdale, and the hurricanes were supposedly coming, so we decided to go to his mother's house for the summer in North Carolina. So here I am on like a ski slope. And I remember thinking, what happened to me? I had like a life. I was living in LA. Now all of a sudden I'm on a ski slope in North Carolina. And in the closest town was Banner Elk. And the big thing to do on a Saturday was go to Banner Elk General Store for a barbecue. And I thought, I have entered hell. Like, what did I do? What is my karma coming back to me? So I plugged in and I wrote this email to everyone I knew in LA who'd been a personal training client. And I said, I'm going to start this e-coaching business.
Now, was that inspired by the people who you listen to? No, but I mean, like, as far as that as an idea back then, like now everybody's like, yes, I can be a coach, right? But back then that wasn't really a thing.
There was no thing.
Right.
I just was broke and I was up on a ski resort in a house.
So you're just thinking, what can I do
like, get me the hell
from
out of here
that might get me out of here?
Yes. It was whatever I need to do to get out of here, I'm getting out of here.
Okay.
And so let's see if I can do this. And so that's what I did. And one of the clients actually said, why don't you just come to Palm Springs and start doing nutrition out of my office and fitness out of my office. He had a physical therapy office.
And you're like, Palm Springs?
Yes. Actually, at that point, I had 2 babies. Another one came into the picture 1 year later.
Okay.
So I had 2 babies at the time. I was like, all right, I'm there. And John was supposedly going to take the bar, and that was all going to be great, except I learned later he didn't want to do that.
Uh-huh. Well, he had already said, I'm not.
Yeah, he wanted to go on tour with tennis. I'm like, you're 40-something.
He's living his second childhood.
That ship sailed, babe. I got there with 2 babies, a husband who didn't want to work, but didn't want to watch the kids all day long. And I just went to work. And what happened, I got there in September. I started working at that office. And I also started running into LA to work to supplement that.
Okay.
Because, again, I was like primary breadwinner. And then 2 weeks before Christmas, it was a husband and wife. And the wife thought I was coming out there to Palm Springs to be her party buddy.
Okay.
Because she had no friends there. She's like, this will be great. And she started being more and more abusive to me in the office. And the husband was like, this is so fantastic. This is my dream. I'm so happy having you here. And the other people in the office were like, you are so fired. It is just a matter of time, right? And 2 weeks before Christmas, I have nothing. They fire me. Yep.
Couldn't wait till after the holiday.
No.
Okay. All right.
Nope. And by January, I was fully loaded as a personal trainer in the desert, and I was still running out to LA to see clients there, and I just did what I had to do.
Okay. So now is that the business that evolved into where you are now?
It was the last thing I wanted to do. Here I knew all about scale and duplication and leverage, and here I was going back as a personal trainer. It was ridiculous. So I was like, this is not my intent, but I had to pay the bills, so you do what you have to do. So I started doing that, and then I decided to build a gym. And which was crazy because I don't like to be in the same place for even a day. So now I had to be at a gym all the time.
So what? So knowing that, what caused you to decide?
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize
You're
that.
like, I should have a gym since I'm doing all this stuff.
So I was like, okay, I'll build a gym. It'll be way easier than running around like a maniac. I'll have trainers working there, etc.
One thing I like that's really cool that I think as we get to the rest of your story, we'll see you all along were thinking, I need to not be the business, which is really unusual. You, right from the very first thing that we were talking about, you said, I got other people, right? I get other people. Like you were thinking about the Body by Jake guy, and you're like, you see he's delegating to brother and getting other people. That's really unusual. Is there anything that you can think like why you were thinking about not having to have the business be you, and why you would have other people? Like I'm going to do a gym and then I can have trainers.
Well, I think there was some of the MLM training kicked in. I know that I could only make so much myself. So there was that part. But I think the other part is my number one core value is freedom. I don't like to have to be anywhere. It's why it took a while for me to even start a mastermind, because I'm like, oh my God, if I have a mastermind, then I'm going to have to be somewhere at a certain time,
right. And your math background continually is like, that means this many hours times this.
And I will always run numbers on anything. I'll run numbers in any room trying to figure out what people are making, what's costing.
Yep.
So it was really a goal of being able to be free. And back when I was a trainer, I loved to travel, and I travel. And not only was I not making money, I was spending money. It was a double whammy. So I'm like, I got to figure this stuff out. And then when I owned a gym, one of my clients in the gym lived in New York half-time. And she said, you got to meet my nutritionist in New York. Call this woman. She goes, oh, you've got to meet this company, Designs for Health, and this guy. So I called him up, and this guy became my nutrition mentor.
Okay.
And I wanted to hear him speak, but he always did it in Boulder. And I go, what do I need to do to get you to come speak here? And he goes, get some doctors in a room. I can do that. And what I didn't know at the time is they had 2 reps in this company. And this was a company that only sold to doctors. And they had, I think, like 12 products. They were probably doing, $2-3 million at the time. They did 2 reps. And very limited thinking reps. But I didn't know any of this.
Right.
So I didn't know that when they did a typical little event, if they had 6 people there, they were overjoyed. I didn't know any of this. I had my new skin background, so I was used to recruiting big numbers.
Fill the room.
Like, I was the biggest doctor recruiter at the time in New Skin. So I was like, get doctors in a room, you'll come out, not a problem. And so I literally had these doctors from all over the desert sitting on those big workout balls and benches. They were all sitting there.
That's awesome. In your gym.
In my gym.
Right.
And we had all the products sitting out, and he's going to come out and talk so that they can sell products, and I'm going to help. So now I'm a rep. I just became a rep. I'm like, okay, fine. Whatever I need to do to learn from him. He comes out, but he can't sell worth crap, right? So he's out and he's talking. They're all mesmerized, and they're all like, this was the greatest thing ever, and leave.
Then they leave.
Like, well, that didn't work really well.
Right.
And so what I did, because I knew in order to get them to come back, we'd have some products being sold. So I thought, all right, these doctors need to buy these products, but they're not actually the ones buying the products. It's the patients.
Sure.
So what I have to do is just create programs to put into their offices so that the patients will use these products over and over again because they're consumable, and in multi-level, it only worked if people kept using them.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's what I did. I went into all their offices. I showed them how to put programs in place so that people use products. And all of a sudden, I break $1 million in sales. I start recruiting other people under me, just like New Skin.
Right.
And the company goes, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I just was doing what we'd done in New Skin.
You already
and
had
they're
the
like,
playbook.
can you do this for the country? And I'm like, sure, I can do this for the country. Next thing I know, the gym that I had is, I'm looking at this, I'm going, well, this is silly. I shouldn't be here. And I was going through a divorce at the time too. And, and he was like, this gym would be way more successful if you weren't here. And I'm like, great, you take it,
Hey.
it's yours.
Right.
I'm leaving. Because I finally had that freedom, like all of a sudden now I had all these people. It was to me, it was everything I'd learned in multi-level.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't have to teach these doctors how to sell a business opportunity to their patients, which is a horrible thing.
Right.
So this was so much easier to do. And so I just set up systems that were duplicatable that I could teach the other reps how to do. And I also knew that I really only like to work with big vision people. And what I saw with a lot of these doctors is they had small practices. That's all they wanted. And they got really bogged down in the details. So I just brought in the lower tier reps to work with those doctors. And that's fine. There's loads of those.
Yep.
And then I whale hunted, because that's what's fun to me.
Yeah.
And we literally would look at it and go, what I knew in the healthcare field was that if I went out and got the whales, everybody else would come in because they'll do what they do.
Right. Of
Right.
Course, yeah.
And so that's what I spent all my time just whale hunting.
Whales and lemmings.
And helping them create these businesses and some of the first online businesses in health. And it was absolutely a blast, was what I wanted to do. And at the same time, one of those doctors was on Dr. Phil. And he goes, can you help me do what you did with Dr. Diana Schwartzbein? I'm going to be on Dr. Phil. Can you come over and help? And I'm like, sure, I can come over and help. So when they first did those weight loss challenges, I came over to help. And I brought in my big Tanita scale and all my stuff, what I was used to do. And I'd been doing local TV in the desert because it was the easiest way to build a business back then. It was easy to get on TV. And so I was used to it. It's not like I just walked onto national TV. I'd been doing it for years.
You had put in your hours, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd been doing makeovers and all sorts of stuff because I could get on local media. I mean, it was Palm Springs, not hard, right?
Right.
And so I get in there and I just started doing what I was used to doing, and no one questioned why I was there. It was the bizarrest thing. There's all these producers, they have no idea what they're doing. They had a trainer who'd never done any of this kind of stuff, and I just started doing it. And then, I was there all week. I was actually supposed to go on a private plane with Kiss and Aerosmith because Gene Simmons was one of my clients back then, and I sat there and I went, I'm going to have to make a decision. Should I stay here and work on this show, or should I go on that private jet?
Right.
And it was a really tough decision. I have to
can
say.
only
I was
imagine.
So I thought I probably should just stay here and do this.
Right.
And the next week when they started the next show, they go, well, where's JJ? And that scale, we need the scale, because I had a $5,000 bioimpedance scale. And so I got back in the car and drove back over, and I was on the show for 2 years.
Wow, I did not know
It was
that.
pretty crazy. Yeah,
That is
every
crazy,
week.
crazy.
And then I did ABC's Extreme Makeover.
Okay.
And then ABC did a primetime pilot called You're What You Eat, and I got off of Dr. Phil to go do that and learned my hard lesson in Hollywood that a show's not a show till the show is actually on air. Up till then, it's just an idea.
It was an idea at that time.
You know, you can film all the stuff. Doesn't
Right.
mean it's ever going to go anywhere. It was a great show, but you've never seen it because it never aired.
So you have now all this exposure from all of the what they call earned media, right? That's out there. And now, during that time, are you consulting? Are you training? Are you a rep for that product still?
Couple little hard life lessons. Dr. Phil for 2 years. I didn't have that thing on the website. I had a website, but you know that thing on the website where you can put your name and email on? I didn't have that.
No lead
Yeah, I
capture.
had no thing there.
Right. And it was
for that.
pre-pixel, so there was no pixeling
There was
back
no
then.
nothing.
Right.
I mean, so I didn't have that piece. I wasn't getting paid on Dr. Phil, right? Because he didn't get paid on Oprah. And so you don't get paid. You just do your thing. So I'm there. I'm not getting paid. I'm also getting no leads. And I have to do all my wardrobe and everything else. So not only am I not getting paid, it's expensive
Wow, yeah.
to be there. But I have my nutrition clientele. I had a doctor in Century City who just wanted me to come to his office once a week, and he would throw all of these celebrities at me. But I was finally like, I don't want to have to be in an office one day a week. That's how much I don't like having to be stuck somewhere.
I know. I get it. I'm in the same boat.
And that was actually when I was running around the country teaching courses to doctors, because I figured out how to just create systems that they could then put into their practices.
Right. Programs, basically,
yes,
right?
Just
Yeah.
all programs. So I was doing really duplicatable programs they could use. But also at the time, I was in LA. I'd go to this doctor's office. Well, inevitably, I'd go there to see all these clients all day long. But people would, oh my gosh, I can't get there. And I thought, well, I'm not doing surgery here. Like, I could actually talk to him on the phone and this would be fine. And then I also thought, I talked to him and give them all this information, and they forget everything. Like 90% they forgot before I even walked out. Now they're pinging me about what can I eat? And I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to start recording this stuff and writing it down. And
Right.
so it went from, I'll do this on the phone, I'll give you handouts, to putting that into a program, just like I was doing for the doctors, to recording all of it, to realizing I could put them into a group. We didn't have Facebook groups back then, but
Right.
we had I think it was a Ning forum.
Ning forums,
Started
yeah.
throwing them into the Ning forum. And as I started doing this, what started out as, I remember it was at the beginning, I'd do an initial consult. It was like $250. And then I would have a 3-month program, and it was like $1,000. By the time I got done doing all of that, it was $7,000. It took me about an hour and a half. I had other coaches supporting me.
Nice.
Right. And they were getting better results.
Right.
And then finally I kept pulling myself out of it more and more and more to see, because I had this limiting belief back then that I had to get in there, and that, I did some kind of super magic. And you realize that we all have a framework, and that, yes, there's maybe 10-20% of this is magic, probably 5 to 10%, but
Right.
there's a whole lot of it that's very programmatic that everyone can do. And so that's what it came to. That's what the Virgin Diet was.
Okay. Is that came right out of that?
Yeah, I was literally teaching the course, Weight Loss Resistance. It was all the things that could get in the way of you losing weight or cause you to gain weight. It came out of, Dr. Phil had one chapter in his book called Weight Loss Resistance, and it was about insulin resistance. And so I was like, that's really interesting, but you missed a lot of it. So I created all the different factors, and one of them was food intolerance. And so I was looking at tons of these tests, and the same foods always showed up. And we used to use an elimination diet that was really complicated. And I thought, it doesn't need to be that complicated. It's only these foods right here. It's these 7.
Right.
So that's where the Virgin Diet came from.
Interesting.
Was that. And I literally did it with thousands of people online. And that's how I sold the book. Was we've run all these people through this program online for, it was like $97. And they're like, $97, to a publisher. That's like, oh my God.
So are you putting together programs and courses and things like that?
That's just, I'm left brain. That's how my brain sees things. I see everything as a business model framework.
Right.
That's just, I can't do it any other way.
Did you have any resources that helped you kind of learn how to do that, or is it just all trial and error?
At first, I didn't have anything before I created all the frameworks for the doctors at first, and there really wasn't anything out there.
So you didn't have other doctor training programs
There wasn't
or
anything. There was nothing out there, and there wasn't anything in the health field. But then what happened? Joe Mercola, Dr. Mercola, used to be at the Designs for Health conferences we did. He used to be one of the speakers. And he would have like people doing their energy work and levitating off the tables and stuff.
Okay.
So I've known him for a long time, but I kind of lost touch with him. And then I wrote this book called The Art of Losing It with a crazy screenwriter who had me sign a contract. We were going to do this together. I was dating him, and it was a 50-50 contract. It gave him 50% of whatever I did for the rest of my life. That's why I now have attorneys surrounding me.
Oh my gosh.
I signed it.
Yeah.
Because he's, yeah. Anyway, so I now have this book, and there was this Dr. Fab Mancini from Parker College. He goes, you got to go talk to Joe Mercola about how you should sell that book. I go, okay. And so I sat down to dinner with Joe, and Joe goes, the money is in the list. And I'm like, what list? What list is the money in?
Right.
Because remember, I had no lead capture on my Dr. Phil.
He's like, that little thing you have on your website? And you're like,
oh, that's why this is doing nothing. And at the time, he was at a Yannick Silver conference, and it was 10 grand.
Yannick. Yeah.
It was 10. And I'm like, 10 grand? What is this?
Right.
It was this online marketing thing. And he goes, you need to read The 4-Hour Workweek. I said, all right. So I got that book, and I read that book. I still say I missed, there must be a hidden chapter in there, because I read the book. I'm like working 8 hours a week. I'm going, I'm totally, I love this idea here, but is there something I'm missing? But in there was some quote by Dan Kennedy, and I used to read all of Dan Kennedy's stuff. And I'm like, I love Dan Kennedy back from the MLM days.
Yeah.
And so I listened to a podcast, or it wasn't a podcast back then. I guess it was a teleclass or something with Dan, and he's interviewing Allie Brown.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, I'm a woman. Dan Kennedy is not very inspiring to me, right? But here's this woman, and she's pretty and she's smart, and I'm like, I want what she's having.
Right.
I could totally relate to her.
Yeah.
She has this $297 e-zine queen.
Yeah, she was the e-zine
right?
queen.
How to boost biz with your online newsletter.
Yeah.
I'm like, I bought it.
Yeah.
I bought that, and I started doing it.
It was a good program.
Yes. I mean, and so I was like, what else does she have? And she had this online business success blueprint workshop.
Yep.
So I went to it.
When was that?
This was like 11 years ago. I think it was 2007 or 2008.
I went to that.
Mari Smith was there.
I went to that. That's
oh my
so
gosh.
funny.
So I remember it because she had to porta potties for the women, because there were so many women there, and
which was actually
brilliant,
pretty smart.
It was really smart. And she was doing those wardrobe changes all day long.
Yeah.
And I just remember looking at her going, whatever. And I'd never been to anything like this. So I didn't understand pitching from the stage or anything else. I just knew whatever she had, I was doing.
Right.
And at the time, I had left that company, Designs for Health. They'd actually bought me out, and that whole thing was done. And I just gotten this really cool contract to build these spas in Europe. It was a $500,000 a year contract.
Now you're still partnered with your screenwriter.
No, that's all over
past
with.
that by
That's
then.
done.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's all done. I'm off TV. I don't have a book. I think that I'm going to go do this spas all over Europe thing with private jet, like
sounds pretty appealing.
It was really appealing.
Yeah.
And I'd done all this stuff, and it was supposed to start. I was supposed to get my first check that week. And I'm at this conference. And she is pitching her mastermind. And I'm sitting, I brought friends with me. And she had 2 levels, this diamond level. Do you remember this? And the platinum level. And it was, I don't even remember, it was like the Millionaire Protege Club. And I'm looking at everybody, and I'm like, I'm joining that diamond thing. And you had to apply, and she wasn't going to take very many people, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm in. So I'm thinking, how much could this be? I'd never been in a mastermind. I didn't know. 10 grand?
Right.
Right? And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do this because I'm going to get that check.
Right.
Right? Because now I have this $500,000 a year business. So I'm totally going to do this. This will be great. So I'm telling them I'm joining Diamond. And she then says it's 100 grand.
And you're like, what?
I know. I'm like, I'm still doing it. Right? I'm looking at them going, well, I'm getting paid 500,000. Okay, I'll pay 100,000. I can do this. I'll still do this. I'm in. I go to the lunch. I basically write a check that I know is going to be good by the time that she cashes it because the money's coming in.
This is like a $10K check to get started?
I think it was a $10K check to get started, but I didn't have that.
Yeah.
I didn't have
But
that.
you're writing the check. You're like, it's going to happen.
It's happening.
Yeah.
That was on a Thursday or something. The money's supposed to be in my bank account on Friday. It's not there.
Right.
I'm calling this guy. I'm like, where's the money? He goes, oh, that whole stock market thing happened that week. He goes, it's delayed in Europe. Don't worry. It'll be there next week.
Oh, now do you know at this point there's a problem?
I'm like, I'm a little bit, but I'm like, okay. All right, fine. Right. Next week comes and goes. The week after comes and goes. Now Allie herself is calling me and I'm like, uh-oh. Right. Not only I have gotten rid of everything I was doing at the time.
You were all ready to go.
I was actually working on a show with the King brothers. They were going to create the next heavyweight champion of the world. I was the nutritionist for that. I dumped that. I dumped my clients. I dumped everything to clear the slate, and I didn't have savings.
Right.
So I had no safety net. I was going to do this. And I'm the sole financial support for my kids. Mm-hmm. And now I don't have this. And I just committed to $100,000 deal. And I get on the phone with Allie, and she goes, I believe in you. I'm like, she believes in me. I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that first year, that deal never came through. Mm-hmm. But the other thing, I had nothing.
Right.
I did $550,000 that first year. I don't know what, just failing fast, just trying everything. That was the year Lisa Sasevich was in there. Mm-hmm. She started the year at 130,000 and did I think 2.1. I felt like the biggest loser because I didn't break $1 million.
Did you really?
It was so ridiculous.
Now, how did that 550 compare to what you had ever done in the past?
It was more than I'd ever done in the past, but yet I felt like a loser. Yeah. Yes, I was like ridiculous. Huh. But, I think the other piece of that is you always need to invest in more than what's comfortable.
Yeah.
I've bought things since and I went, well, if it didn't really register on my screen, I didn't pay any attention to it.
Sure.
So I feel like I was so fortunate to invest and have that be so absolutely impossible that I just did everything I needed to do to make it happen. It's just like when I launched the Virgin Diet and I was like, there's no option here. I think for too many of us, success is optional.
Right. Oh, you didn't have a choice there. You had a family to support and the whole deal.
No choice at all. And what was amazing at the time is the gal who's worked with me for, 21 years, who's still, she's still with me. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it got so bad. I didn't know how to pay my mortgage. I had nothing.
Right.
And she took her whole life savings. She didn't tell me she was doing this because I was doing whatever I had to do to make this happen, scrambling. She put her whole life savings in my bank account.
That is something.
Uh-huh.
That is something.
Crazy amazing.
Wow.
Forever indebted. She's like, I believe in you. I'm like, okay, all these people believe in me. I better believe in me too.
That's pretty cool. So what finally broke for you? Was it a combination just of a billion things that got you to that new level, or was there a breakthrough? That
was just a lot of inspired action. None of those things really hit. Mm-hmm. I just did so many of them. And it's interesting if you throw enough crap up against the wall, right? But one of the things I was talking about was food intolerance. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it was food sensitivity and everyone thought it was an allergy. And Lisa Sasevich kept saying, that thing there, that food intolerance, because everyone would chase me out of the room.
Uh-huh. That's a clue.
Big clue. And that's why we always got to remember, I feel like so many people try to create at their desk. That always gets you in trouble.
Yeah.
Because you can create the thing that you think is so cool at your desk, but no one necessarily is going to buy it.
Right.
You have a good thing is if you go and speak and people chase you out of the room.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they buy it and they bring more people. You win. If that doesn't happen, stop.
Right.
Stop it. So one of the things Allie insisted was that I get back on TV.
Okay.
And I can manifest like nobody's business. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, I got to get back on TV.
And you had done that before, so it wasn't foreign to you at all. Yeah.
But what was crazy was I go, okay, I got to get back on TV. I literally just started visioning being back on TV. And the casting agent who casted me in the ABC show calls me up and goes, hey, I've got a show.
This is nice.
Yeah. It just was crazy. I was like, that is so crazy. Yeah. So I was back on TV pretty quickly. The challenge was I was on a TV show that's kind of a cross between Hoarders and my secret addiction. It was called Freaky Eaters.
Okay.
And it was people who have this weird addiction to eating one thing. So we had like French fry eaters and tartar sauce eaters and maple syrup eaters.
Tartar sauce eaters. That's a rough one.
On everything. Tartar sauce on pancakes, tartar sauce on French fries. So anyway, message to market mismatch, right?
Right.
But what was cool about getting back on that show was my co-star's book agent I got to know. And my co-star's book agent is the one who said, you need to do a book on food intolerance. Now, I'd been turned down by 3 other agents when I was on Dr. Phil.
Right.
She goes, listen, you need to do a book. You need to do a book on that food allergy thing. I go, it's not a food allergy. She goes, well, we'll figure out what to call it. Because no one was talking about food intolerance back then, right? And so we were like, we'll call it food intolerance. And I said, all right, I'll do that. And I found out my co-star had gotten a $500,000 book advance. And I said, I want one of those too. Let's get $500,000.
Right.
And
nice.
I just did the whole vision $500,000.
Yeah.
We go out to sell that book right after we find out that after the second season of Freaky Eaters, thank God it got canceled. I was like, please cancel the show. I'm like in Reading, Pennsylvania in the snow taping shows. So my first book, 6 Weeks of Sleeveless and Sexy, had sold I don't know, 1,000 copies. So I've got no track record for anyone to give me $500,000. Mm-hmm. I got $500,000.
That's so amazing.
It was so cool.
Just because you didn't know you couldn't, and because you were so determined to make it happen. Yeah.
You know, when you're selling a book, you just have to sell how you're going to sell it. And I knew that I had a lot of doctors and that I spoke on stages. You know, it's one thing to speak on a consumer stage, but I spoke on stages with 5,000 doctors, and 5,000 doctors each have 2,000 patients.
Absolutely.
And that's run the math.
Yeah.
So, and I was still doing a bunch of TV.
Now, did you sell the publisher based on your math analysis of?
I mean, that's, run the numbers. Right?
I love that.
I had all these influencers who were buddies, so between all the doctors that I knew who all had their people and then the places I spoke, that's how I sold the book.
So, okay, now you sell that book, you've got your $500,000 advance, and you've done a whole bunch of things since then, and it seems to be very strategic, which I love.
Some of it.
So walk us through from what happened from there to now.
So my book before the Virgin Diet was 6 Weeks to Sleeveless and Sexy, which was very good because it showed me what not to do.
Okay.
And so when I did the Virgin Diet, I was like, I am going to get this book on the New York Times. What do I need to do? Success leaves clues. Who's done that? Mm-hmm. Brendan Burchard's done that.
Right.
I'll go hire him.
Okay.
So I went and hired Brendan. And then also one of my good buddies is Dr. Daniel Lehman. He'd done PBS. I go, tell me if this is one I could do.
Okay.
Because that is a very specific audience.
Yes.
So I hired his producer who has done more of the health shows than anybody else. And I just went to the people who'd already done it. And one thing I think that's my greatest attribute is I'm super coachable. Mm-hmm. I don't go in and go, okay, you did this. Now before I do it, I'm going to try to make it better than what you did.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, no, I did exactly what Brendan said to do.
Right.
And got exactly the same results. He got a $2 million book advance after that. I got a $2 million book advance. The only difference was I was on the list for 26 weeks,
right.
which is craziness. A lot of that was the PBS thing. And I did like Rachel Ray. Rachel Ray was a great show for me. Never got back on. I knew I wouldn't. Dressed frumpy, tried everything, but I was like going in, I'm 6 foot tall blonde telling you not to eat gluten. This is not a war I'm going to win. But what I've done that's probably strategic is listen. And when I haven't listened, that's when it didn't work. So after the Virgin Diet, the biggest question I got asked about was sugar, because one of those 7 foods was sugar.
Okay.
And people were like, but wait a minute, can't I just have honey? It's natural. Or what about artificial sweeteners? So that was the logical next step. Mm-hmm. And my agent was like, we need to do a book on sugar. And I'm like, I don't really want to do a book on sugar. She goes, no, you have to. So there was a framework I always wanted to do around sugar, because I knew we'd been looking at it all wrong. And I also have a framework around dieting that's different.
Okay.
Like if people really look at my books, they're like, I pulled those 7 foods out. I go, if you really look at the way I write my books, I write them as a process.
Okay.
And they're 4-step processes, 3 to 4-step processes where you go on a journey to figure out which foods work for you and which foods don't. It's not pull these foods out forever. It's pull them out, see how you feel, retest, figure out, make this plan work for you for the long haul. Same with sugar. It's like, how much sugar can you eat? Because it's not about eating no sugar. It's knowing which to choose, which to lose. So I create frameworks for short-term dietary interventions that are therapeutic to get you a result that you carry on into your regular life, because no one stays on a diet long-term.
Right.
And in fact, our vernacular is screwed up, because we shouldn't have one word diet. We should have a diet should be a short-term thing. And then there should be another word for how we eat all the time.
Interesting.
makes more sense.
Is that an upcoming book?
I'm kind of mulling over, I'm in my transition state from I've got my consumer diet health thing and then my business stuff over here. And I got that last one over there. And my agent's like, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do it, but I'm outlining the roadmap of that. And if I can get it very clear, then I'll do it.
That's exciting.
And if I can test it.
Okay.
Because like when I did the sugar impact diet, the way I wrote it was I outlined the framework. I had research assistants go find all the stuff because I am not a fact finder. I'm a quick start. And then I took 1,000 people through it. And I took 1,000 really difficult people who were sugar addicts, because I had to point to prove that I could retrain someone's sweet tooth so that it would no longer taste good to them. Prove that model, and then did the book. I wouldn't have done it if I couldn't have proven it, and then everybody wanted to bring their friends. So I knew, that I was onto something. So the book that was the mistake was the Warrior Mom Miracle Mindset book.
Which we talked about a little bit at lunch.
So that was not strategic, but in a way it almost is reverse strategic, because it's strategic in a different way, in that if you want to be an expert guide, you've got to have your own hero's journey. And so it actually happened because I was at a Brendan Burchard event and they were doing a whole thing around hero's journeys. And I'm like, I have a lame hero's journey. I literally remember saying that day, God, I don't really have a hero's journey.
But you do. You totally do.
I didn't then. I mean, I do. We all have a hero's journey, but we think ours is boring, right? Because it's ours.
Fair.
We lived with that. It's like big deal.
Because you've lived it for however many years it took.
But I mean, the hero's journey of launching a New York Times bestseller bedside with your son in a coma is a way bigger hero's journey than teaching tap dancing in Japan, let's face it, right? So, but don't ask for one. Like, don't ask for one. That's the big takeaway.
Interesting. So you were writing all these books.
By speaking all these books, because I hate writing.
Sorry, you were creating all these books. Fair enough. And you mentioned at lunch that sometimes you use a traditional publisher and sometimes you don't, and that you have a strategic reason for that, which I thought was interesting. Would you share that?
I actually think that for your big signature book that you really want to build a brand around, I think that's where you use a traditional publisher for a variety of reasons. The first one is they just help you make a better book. You have a whole editing team that is used to doing this stuff, and they're just better at it, right? Now, you also have to have a good agent who's going to fight with them when they want to do dumb titles and bad book covers, because they're not marketers.
Right.
But they're good editors, and they're also good distributors.
Right.
They're not good marketers.
Right.
I don't know why people think that their publisher is going to be doing their marketing and PR. They aren't.
Yeah.
But that's where I think it's great to go into partnership with them, because I look at a book as a small soldier. I'm not looking to make money off the book. I'm looking to create great lead gen from my book, and they're going to help me get it into more hands. But if I have a book that I'm testing the waters with, or like with the Virgin Diet, the smartest thing would have been to write the Virgin Diet and then have been ready to roll out the Virgin Diet cookbook series, because there's a couple reasons this is important. Number one, you cannot trademark a book title unless it's part of a series. But number two, if you're using Amazon, which, the New York Times, I'm just waiting for this to become irrelevant. It really needs to be, because what really should be relevant is the actual numbers of books sold, which is not how the New York Times does it. And when you really look at it, people are really buying books on Amazon now. Maybe a little Barnes and Noble, but Amazon is the big player in the space. And so you really want them. I see them as another platform. So we have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have iTunes, and we have Amazon is a really powerful platform.
Right.
And so you want them marketing for you. And so if you have a book out there that's selling, they are going to sell more of it. And then they're watching for the first 6 weeks. That's why it's so important to really push through Amazon, and you can run book ads through Amazon. If it's going, they'll keep going with it. So in my perfect world, if I had this to do over again, I would have done the Virgin Diet, and then I would have been ready with the Virgin Diet cookbook. I would have done one basic one. Then I would have done one for paleo, one for vegan, one goes Italian, one desserts, right? And I just would have kept rolling those out. And it's important to do, because if you go on Virgin Diet on Amazon, you will see more knockoffs. It's unbelievable.
Really?
The minute your book comes out, someone did my Virgin Diet. Then someone did my 7-day Virgin
straight
Diet.
on with the virgins.
I'm like, who does this? Are you incapable of your own original thought? Like, what a lame person.
Right.
And then someone did, before my cookbook came out, because it was 18 months later, someone did a Virgin Diet cookbook. They sold 200,000 of these
Because they thought
things.
it was you?
Yeah, because people didn't know.
Wow.
Right? I'm like, I felt like that Working Girl movie where Melanie Griffith's idea got.
They tried to steal the idea, and then she had to explain the origin of it.
It's like, okay, so why did you name your book My Virgin Diet Cookbook?
Sigourney Weaver, I think, tried to steal it from her,
Sigourney
right?
Weaver stole it from.
Yeah.
Was it Melanie? Anyway.
That film is one of those books that you said you read to fall asleep by, right?
Yeah, that would be one of those. Yes.
I like that. Now, you mentioned that you're transitioning. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
So I always start with the big vision. And, if you start with this big vision, why, mission, kind of how shows up. So early on in health, my first big vision was I'm not employable. And I don't want to have a boss and then have to be somewhere.
Right.
So I loved
freedom.
health and I loved exercise. And I was like, how do I get to do something like that? So that was my first one, was like, how do I survive and not have to go get a job? Because I was graduating UCLA and all of my friends were getting these jobs in offices and they were making like 30 grand a year. And I go, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Why would you do that?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I can really work my butt off and make that in a month and a half.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to go do that. That's
Right.
silly. But then as I started to see the impact, I'm like, how do I help 1 million people? Like, how do I do that? And next thing you know, I'm on Dr. Phil. Mm-hmm. And so the next one, it was, okay, billion people. How do you do that? Like I want to hit 1 billion people. And I realized that is not just me. And honestly, I kind of hit all the goals I wanted to hit in my consumer brand.
Okay.
Like I kept trying to set bigger goals. I'm like, okay, I'll do a #1 New York Times bestseller. I'll do, and I went, I could care less. Like I did all the shows. I had my own shows. I did all the books. I created a movement in food intolerance. Like brought that thing, put it on the map.
Right.
And, this is what I keep coaching my doctors on. I go, when you really have a good idea, I was reading this, Seth Godin just said this in Tribes. He goes, Gandhi isn't going, hey, you took my idea. Like when you have a really good idea, it goes out.
Catches
and then
fire.
all of a sudden it's like Dave with Bulletproof. It's like butter coffee.
Right.
And that's when you
Do you know
that
I was watching, this is going to show you the trash that I watch, on the flight back from Russia, like a few weeks ago. I watched Divorces of the Rich and Famous of London or something like this was playing. And I was like, I have to see this because it's all these people. And one of these super rich divorcees, who was actually a pretty cool lady, was getting ready for the interview. And she said, well, before we do this, I have to have my bulletproof coffee. And I was like, Dave would be proud. Dave would be proud.
And
Go
as
ahead. I'm sorry.
investors, we're proud too.
Yes, yes, exactly. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway.
Billion people.
So 1 billion people. And I love a lot of variety and I love frameworks and I love marketing and I love health. And I also love spotting out people I know have that. There's an it factor, especially for TV and video, and you either have it or you don't have
Right.
it. I can't teach it. I can teach someone how to be a lot better on video.
You need the raw materials to work.
But if they're just a dud, I'm not going to make a dud like a superstar. But
Right.
some of the people who I've coached, like Dr. Kellyanne and Dr. Sarah Gottfried and Dr. Alan Christensen, they got it.
Right.
And Dr. Stephen Masley, he was the #1 health show on PBS, right? It's that is what's exciting to me now, is having all these different models, because I see in business coaching, someone has a model and then they try to squish everyone into this model.
Yeah.
I'm like, and then of course that model doesn't work anymore because everyone's using the model. I go, that's what you want to do, is you want to have a load of different models. You want to look at someone, look at what their big vision why is, then look at what their unique ability is, then look at what their lifestyle is, and look at what they want for their outcomes, and then figure out the best models and then adjust, because, you have to make tweaks all along the way.
Sure.
So it's what my brain loves. And it's combined in that big mission. And I'm still working in the health world, although I'm doing another one in women's space too, because I like that one too. So yeah, it's a weird time right now. It was actually at an event and they were talking. It was a business event, but they were talking something about food intolerance, and they were talking about these people, and my name didn't even come up. And these were people like that like I taught were
Right.
being like held out as the gurus.
Right.
And at first my little ego went, oh, and then I went, this is awesome. Like this is like you really made it now. Right.
Yeah.
But it is weird when you're shifting hats, because I was so used to being recognized as this celebrity nutrition and fitness expert.
Right.
And now I just decided the best way to do it was to give myself 3 years.
The it here is to get the 1 billion people, right?
Yeah, that goal there is to do that, and also create this I just sold one of my companies, so I really look at every single company as what's saleable. How do I make something that lives beyond me? How do I take myself out of the picture? When my business, my Mindshare business started, we didn't have a name for it. I just knew I needed to get some people in a room and collaborate that we'd be better together.
Right.
And so it was JJ's Thing. And then when I named it, there was a transition point from being JJ's Thing to Mindshare. And what I started to do was take as many people and put them on stage and remove myself as much as possible and build as many leaders, like we have mentors in there, because it is not about any one of us. And that's not how A, you create a saleable business, or B, you really create a movement, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Early on, it was about me and all that stuff, but you kind of get to a point and you go, oh, that's really, I did that.
Right.
That's fine.
Right.
I don't need to do that anymore. Right. And it gives me so much more joy now. The first time one of the people I coached got on the New York Times, it was this is the greatest thing.
That's exciting.
The next time someone I coached got number 1 on the New York Times, I was like, this is the great, this is so much better.
Right.
It's so cool.
Interesting.
So I'm giving myself a couple more years to make that transition. One, because I also have a company still going, but I'm lifting the coaches up and making them part of it. And we're still trying to figure out a name for that. This is the other important thing. That company's done millions and millions in product sales, and I still don't have a tagline or a company name. So, people they start a company that gets so bogged down at their desk of, I got to have the logo and then I go,
no kidding.
No, you need to see if anyone wants it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Mindshare didn't have a name for years. JJ Virgin's still JJ Virgin because we have not figured out the name. We hired branding companies, everything else, but we still kept selling.
Yeah.
And changing lives.
That's the way to do it, right? As you go along. So what would you advise folks who have a passion like you have had for health and nutrition and fitness to do to turn that into something that can make them a living and also spread their message and the benefit that they want to spread?
So I actually created this wore on me so much because I was coaching people and I got to have a framework. I actually created a framework called You the Brand, and I outlined the whole thing one morning. I woke up at 4 a.m. and just the whole thing came out of my head.
That's awesome.
And I outlined the whole thing. And it starts with really identifying, because I work with a lot of functional medicine doctors. They work with complicated patients.
Right.
I'm like, that's great. But within that, you've got a framework.
Yep.
That even though you say you work with complicated patients and you're an artist and they're all different, there's still a thing you do with all of them. So figure out what that thing is that you're repeating. And I always say, what are you repeating? And then what are the things that you are getting, people are coming into your office asking for? Because there's something that they're asking for over and over and over again that is your niche that you need to start with. No one ever wants to start with the niche. They feel like they're losing it, but you've got to have a place where you can start to build momentum from.
Right.
So you figure out what that one is that you get asked about all the time. And then what's the framework you do the most that will get people 80% of the way. People who are used to working in an office want to get people 100%. This, you just need to get them 80%. Then they can go work with you or a coach or someone else to get to the last bit. But you're just going to take your framework and find that niche and then which audience you want to start with. And this is where you're starting because they all hyperventilate.
Right.
That the audience you want to work with, the niche you want to play in, and that framework you have and what is in there that's unique. Because every single person I talk to, they go, I've got this 5-part framework I do. Let me guess. It's diet and exercise and sleep and stress. They're like, yes. I'm like, that's not your framework.
Right.
That's a process, but there's something you do, like I did with food intolerance and applying it to weight loss. And it may just be that you're doing, like I took an elimination diet, but I applied it to weight loss.
Right.
That was the unique spin.
Right.
So it could be anything, but that's the first place to start. But to really also identify that audience that you want to work with, because you can pick it. And that's why I've been asked to do business coaching for different places, but I love working with doctors and health experts.
Right.
That is my favorite group to work with. One, because of the impact they make, but also I've done so much of it. I understand them. I help them get their messaging because they tend to try to complicate everything and talk in too big of words.
Right.
That mentor I told you about at age 30, she sat down. She goes, you're not allowed to say anything that's got more than one syllable.
Oh, wow.
And you're going to have to explain everything you just said that way. And I went, what? And then when I was on Dr. Phil, he says, you need to speak to 5th graders.
Right. Yeah, and they take in marketing, right? You have to write to 4th grade level. That's the ideal thing. And people are like, no, but my market is much more sophisticated. They're humans.
Not really.
Yeah.
It's really much more of an ego-driven of needing to be significant and sound smart.
So do you still advocate? Would you still recommend that someone speak to test?
Yes. So this is the big thing because everyone wants to get online. Like I think they think that if they get online, that there's all these people online. It's almost like I'm going to go do that crowdfunding.
Right.
And it's like,
crowdfunding
but there's
thing
no
is hot.
crowd.
Right.
You still have to have the crowd. I think they think they're going to get online and all these people are going to magically find them. I still think the very best thing that you can do is get out there and speak. Immediately when you are looking at people, because you won't see it on a podcast. You cannot look at them and go, oh, this is not landing at all. They don't care. They just left the room.
Right.
So I really love going, and this is how I built my whole career. I've gone to speak somewhere, and there's 3 people there, and I was like, all right, you're going to have the best talk ever.
So like if there were 3 people there, you weren't like, I'm more important than this. I'm not going to waste my time here. You felt like I get
I'm
the
going to
chance
serve
to win
those
these 3 people. Right.
big time, and I'm going to get some great market analysis.
Yeah.
I just did a thing at my house. We had testimonials, and I just decided we needed testimonials for home shopping. So we went through and we brought 10 of my top people to the house. And I didn't realize that I was supposed to be there all day. I thought that I was going to do my little thing and leave. And they're like, oh no, my team's like, oh no, could you at least be there for an hour? Well, I just hung the whole day with them.
Right.
We had the best time. And I just talked to them the whole day and coached them. And I got more market research.
Right.
That was more valuable. So the most valuable thing if you're thinking about creating a program is just go speak.
So how would you suggest somebody do that? You have done this a whole lot, and so seen a lot of different ways to go about it. What would you tell somebody that's new to that wants to go out and do that and to give it a try?
So you want to get in front of your target market. Like I remember when I first started speaking, you just had to have a pulse, and I was going to go do it. I spoke at Rotary clubs. I think I told you my first talk was to 100 of these trucking executives.
Yeah, I like the trucking executives.
Yes, I was like,
can you tell that story real quick? Because I love that story.
Yes. So back when I was a personal trainer and making, I think by that point, maybe I was making $75 an hour. Right. And I was like working my butt off 7 days a week. And one of my clients, and I was like, how do I make more money? And she goes, well, I didn't ask her that. I was asking that to the universe. Right. And she said, hey, do you speak? Because I need to have a speaker on health and we pay $1,000. And I go, yes, I speak.
Why, yes, I do.
Now I do.
Why, yes,
I do. Why, yes, I do. So if I go to speak, drive up to Ojai Valley Ranch, there are 100 Navistar trucking executives, all dudes. I'm the little lamb. I must have been like 26.
Right.
Go in there. I think I probably had on my leotard, probably had my workout outfit in there. I go trekking on in there.
Sure, they appreciated that.
And yes, and I'm speaking and I'm talking about the importance of exercise and aerobic exercise. And this guy raises his hand and he goes, I've got a question, and I'm like looking at him and all the guys are looking now at him and me. And he goes, I've got my exercise is sex. Is that an exercise? And I said, well, and I don't know what possessed me, but thank God this came to me. And I said, well, in order for it to count, it has to be a large body part moving over an extended period of time. So I'm just guessing with you, it's not. And it was like all, respect,
They just bust out laughing and they're all giving him a hard time.
I won them all over. Yeah. No one harassed me.
So cool.
It was so awesome. But it also allowed me, like I've been in so many different audiences now that, it's like, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
What are they going to do? And I also have learned that the single best thing you can do when you get into an audience is get into the audience, get off the stage. The stage is a wall. Like I look at what we're doing now and you can learn online. So there's all sorts of great training online, but when you're in person, you want to connect. And if I'm up on a stage and they're all over there, I'm not connecting with them. 100%. I want to get down there and let's have a talk. And let's be interaction. I want to hear what you have to say. And let's turn it from a talk to a conversation, because then we can really do something. Right. And then you're going to see, like, whenever I'm testing out new stuff, I go do a talk on it. Like the first time I tested out Miracle Mindset, I went. And the first time actually I tested Sugar Impact Diet out too, I was on Brendan Burchard's stage and people were like, are you nuts? You're going to test a talk out with like 600 people? I go, yes, this is the best time to do it. Right. Like now I'll know if this thing really works. And so that's how I always test. Now, I wouldn't say go test with 600 people, but you can test with 10, but you figure out who your market is, right? Like my market is 50 and 60-year-old women. Find out where they are. Are they at a church group, or a temple or a gardening club, wherever. Right. And the more you can know about those people, the more you can find out where they are. There's so many of these meetings going on. It's not hard. Everyone's looking for speakers.
And there's someone who is sad that they are the person tasked with, you've got to find us a
Yeah.
speaker every week. So
Yep.
they're like actually grateful.
And there's no budget.
Right. Right.
So it's fantastic. I've been doing little local talks. I mean, I did them when I got to Palm Springs broke as a little personal trainer who had already known how to do duplication scale, and I'm starting back over again. I went, okay, I'm going to own this market fast. First thing I went and did was I went and found the local news anchors. I started training them. I met the editor of the newspaper.
Right.
So I was in the paper. I was on TV all the time. And then
everybody's like, how is she doing
It
that?
was like, this was the easiest slam dunk
That's
ever.
awesome.
Yeah. And when I owned the gym, I put the back door of the most exclusive boutique in town was the front door of very body conscious clothing was the front door of my gym.
Okay.
So that woman would just walk them right on over.
That's so
they
nice.
couldn't fit in those clothes. Come on over here.
Smart. That's great. Thank you so much for coming and joining. Before we part, I would love it if you travel quite a bit in your life, and I'm a big fan of travel hacks and things like that. Is there anything that you have discovered in your travels that makes them better, or that allows you to upgrade, get things that you might not otherwise
Oh, you
get,
are the king of
et cetera,
this
et
stuff. I was
cetera?
going to say, my big travel hack is to take my bars with me. Like, that's
Oh, I
my
like that.
travel hack.
Well, let's talk about that. So tell us that.
Well, because I'm a nutritionist, I'm a big baby about what I will eat.
Right.
So I actually travel with a NutriBullet, with my shakes, with my bars. I have Instacart bring stuff to my hotel wherever I am. I always have a refrigerator in my hotel room. And then I also created a product that digests gluten, dairy, soy, and eggs and blocks carbs.
Okay.
It actually, when I went to Italy and I went, I'm going to eat everything and lose weight. So I brought gluten enzymes and I brought carb blockers.
Okay.
And I didn't want to tell people what I was doing. So I was like, I went to Italy, I lost a pound. They're like, what'd you do? I'm
So
like,
you had your pastas and all those fun
I was
things?
eating like a piggy.
Nice.
And so I finally just made the product and called it Safety Net. At first, it was going to be called Hall Pass. And I
Okay.
thought, that's off brand. But the
Other things too.
so the other travel and the other thing that I always do is I make sure that my EA team, like I have all of these things that I need for my hotel, like where it needs to be located. Where is it in terms of the elevator? What's the gym like? They have to tell me what is in the gym because I
Okay.
have to make sure I have gyms. And is there a Starbucks close by?
Right.
But I stick with Marriott and SPG. So I was always SPG. I was a
Starwood
platinum,
preferred
whatever.
group,
It
is
was
that what it is?
Starwood.
Yeah.
Now it's Starwood merged with Marriott. So I'm now the platinum for life and an ambassador, which means that I can check in at any point. They do 24 hours from whenever you check in.
Nice.
They upgrade you. So I'm always upgraded wherever I go.
Okay.
And I just stick with that hotel chain. So when we go on vacations places, I never pay for hotels. We have butler services and suites and everything
Yeah.
else, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
do everything that way. So it's not really a great hack. It's just that I've been super loyal.
To me, it actually is. It's if you can pick a chain
Yeah.
that has a loyalty program rather than spreading yourself across 10 or 20, why not build the loyalty points? Because look at all the benefits you've
Yeah,
got.
so you use their credit card to do it because you get like triple, quadruple points.
Right.
And then I also do my events as much as possible through the
those
chain.
hotels.
So, I mean, we have so many points now. It's just ridiculous. So I am so loyal to that group because of it. So that occasionally, like, that's why I'm not staying here. I'm staying down the street
Yeah,
at the
at
JW
Marriott.
Marriott,
Yeah,
which,
yeah.
they have a great gym.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the other piece of it. And there's
That's
a
fantastic.
Starbucks in it. So see, that's
It's
my
got
thing.
everything.
It's got everything I need.
I like it.
Except not a bathtub, and that's very upsetting to me.
Yeah, bathtubs are nice when you travel.
Yeah, it's super important. Well, I do a bath every single night.
Do you?
Not now because there is none
Because
there.
there isn't one. Okay.
Marriott, hear that?
Thank you. Thanks again for coming on the show and being here with us and sharing so generously. What if people want to get a hold of you and connect with you or your products or any of that kind of stuff? What are the best ways for them to reach out and connect?
Yes, the easiest, jjvirgin.com. And then if you're a health expert or doc, it's mindsharesummit.com. It's actually mindsharecollaborative.com. We finally did the site about it.
Mindsharecollaborative.com.
Yeah, That's a mouthful.
It is a lot.
It is a mouthful.
And then for any of those products that you mentioned or any of that
Oh,
kind of
yes,
stuff?
jjvirgin.com.
all
Travel
there.
with those bars and stuff like that.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Super fun.